Huge thanks to these stores and teams for sponsoring my trip to ARG Nationals. It's a really awesome opportunity. I wouldn't have been able to do it without the help of these guys. So please go down to the description, find the links, check them out, show them some love. I'd really appreciate it. These guys all put in a lot of work to help get me there. So I'm really appreciative of it. So with that, let's get on to the content. Hey there guys, DMO73 here, bringing you a feature match for the week. I am playing a green-based Valentina 2.0 list, and that is what I'm featuring today versus Paul, who brought his black-blue reflect discard control. So, very interesting list from Paul. Actually, no regalia in the entire list for Paul, and then the green Valentina 2 list is actually one that's been pretty popular over in Italy. It only uses 9 regalia, and it has a green stone base to provide lots of ramping and other stuff to be able to make the God's Arts more influential and more powerful, and rely on stuff outside of just Valentina 2. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I'm going to be going first, hit that blue stone off the top, get a Cheshire Cat, and I almost catch myself doing a reflect filter and putting a card on the bottom, but I catch myself and put it back on the top. Pawn draws for turn and then immediately does his reflect filtering, so he draws a card off the top and then puts it back on the bottom. Taps for his first stone. So in this situation, Paul's deciding whether or not he gets to go ahead and play the Barrier of Shadows right off the top. The Barrier of Shadows means that now I have to pay 1 more for every God's Art and 1 more for every Regalia activate ability and 1 more to Judgment. So essentially just slows my deck down having to get more stuff. But with a ramp deck like the green Valentina 2 list, it's not as detrimental because of the fact that I'm ramping so much. So I was able to play Gretel and Elvish Priest on that turn too, so now I'm sitting at 4 will going into my 3rd turn. So Paul plays Alice's Little Scout, and then a second Barrier of Shadows, so now I have to play 2 for every Regalia activation, God's Art, and Judgment. So I'm just going to go ahead and take some time and just do some more ramping. So I play Cheshire Cat and draw into 2 cards. See, I have that Levitine. I'm going to go ahead and pay 2 to search for a Regalia. I grab the Death Scythe. I don't really want... The reason I'm doing this now is because I'm actually about to play a Familiar Holy Wind, and I don't want to draw the card that I put back on top with Cheshire Cat. I want to draw something different. So by shuffling... by doing the search, I get a free shuffle off of the deck, which means that my familiar can let me draw into something different. And then I play that Adamberly by stacking Gretel and Cheshire Cat, which means that I get another shuffle of the deck, and then I get to draw a card, and I get to produce will of any color. I believe I produce green? Yeah, I produce green, and I am able to put out another Elvish Priest. So now moving into my turn 4, I have 6 will available to me, which is pretty great. I'm already well ahead. Essentially, I have twice as many will for as Paul at this point. 3rd Barrier comes out. Thank goodness I did all that ramping, and then a Spiral of Despair gets hit. So I decide to drop one of the 2 Death Scythes I have in my hand, because I will be able to recur it if I need to, and the Feasting. Because at this point, Paul's not being very aggressive, so Feasting's not super important, and I do have all that ramping already completed, so the extra will from Feasting is not terribly important at this point. So I had to pay 6 in order to do Judgment, so I go ahead. At this point, it felt like it was the best position. So Valentina 2.0 is going to flip over, and when she enters the field, I reveal any number of 7 King's Rulers from my sideboard. So I reveal all 7. For each one that I reveal, she gets +100/+100, and gets their name and God's Art abilities. So she's now a 14/14. So I swing in and he blocks with Alice's little scout, and then I swing in with the Adamberly to get 600 damage in there. So some first damage finally getting through on the board. So I put myself in a good position here against a discard player. I only have one card in my hand, and I have lots of stuff to be able to just kind of sacrifice for things like Soul Hunt and stuff like that. And Paul's only moving into 4 will. So he plays 4. He plays Mephistopheles. So this is a power play in the sense that now he's got this kind of large creature on board to stand in the way of my Valentina, which is pretty great. So I actually do a misplay here, and I'll talk about it here in a second. I sack off my Cheshire Cat and Familiar with Holy Wind to play another Adamberly. So this is going to let me draw a card and then produce a will of any color. Draw into another Maribel. And I play the other Cheshire Cat by producing the blue from Adamberly. Oh, I almost did it again. Did I catch it? Oh, yes, I do catch it. So, remember, I'm so used to playing Reflect that I'm used to filtering to the bottom. I haven't played with Cheshire Cats in a while. So I swing in with 6, he lets that happen. And here's where I misplay. So I spend all 6 to put out a Maribel. I'm trying to sneak in that damage, so I swing for a grand against Paul. What I could have done here, and yes, that's not necessarily a bad play. I mean, I was able to get 1,800 damage, or 1,000 damage through. What I could have done was swung in, and if he tried to block with Mephistopheles on my Valentina, I could have just paid 3 to tap my Death Scythe, kill and steal the Mephistopheles, and I would still have 3 will left over to be able to tap Levantine on my turn to give Valentina Imperishable if I needed it. But because I spent all 6 will on a Maribel, now my Valentina is just kind of stuck there. So that was kind of misplay number 1. The second thing that you're going to see here is I completely forget that Maribel reduces the damage to your J-Roller. So that's an important thing to note. It doesn't have a huge impact on the game because of the position that we're both kind of in right now, and how much will I have, but it kind of does, and just in terms of things actually being on board. So he plays 2 Rasputins and plays Nyarlathotep, makes me discard my Gretel, which at this point really doesn't do anything. He decides not to recur his Rasputins because he doesn't want to take 400 damage, because he knows that I have a lot of damage on board outside of Valentina, and so paying 400 would put him in a really bad spot. Essentially, would be able to put him in a point where I could kill him next turn. So you see us debating a little bit in terms of Paul thinking about whether or not he wants to use his Mephistopheles to kill my Valentina 2.0. So we talk about this a lot, but this is important to remember that we both completely forgot that Maribel's going to reduce that damage. So even though technically Mephistopheles has more attack than my Valentina, and there's no way for me to pump her up, Maribel's would be reducing my damage by 400. So Mephistopheles would only be able to do 1,100 damage to my Valentina. We don't catch it in this game, but like I said, it really doesn't have a terrible impact on the situation overall, just because of the way the board states are shaping up. Either way, Paul's in a really bad position here. He's going to have to sacrifice that Nyarlathotep to Mephistopheles at the end of the turn. He's got that Reflect with 4 counters, and he attacks, and technically he shouldn't have even been able to kill me there. I would have just taken 1100 damage, and his Mephistopheles would have also just survived but been tapped. So it really doesn't change the situation a ton in this vein. Just because of the fact that he tapped out, essentially this turn I would be able to pull off lethal, because I could just do either an attack or another Maribel swing, and just would have put him in a position where he only has 1 blocker to block too many things. So he actually searches. So here's the other thing: he searches with Reflect Refrain. I don't know what he searches for. He could have bounced one of my Resonators, like one of the Adombralies, back to my hand, but he technically really doesn't want to do that, because I could just get the rest of the damage in and then reincarnate to get Adombrali back out, or just replay Adombrali manually, because I have so much will available to me, and then actually play the Quinglong as well. So I'm sitting here with a lot of Resonators that only have to do 400 damage in order to finish the game off, which puts him in a bad position. The other thing is too, none of these Resonators, like if he had, say, like an Endless Night, only Cheshire Cat's gonna be killed by Endless Night, the additional effect of giving everything -2. So yeah, there you see it. Yeah, Endless Night comes out, I lose the Cheshire Cat and the Quinglong, but other than that, nothing really gets done, because the Elvish Priests have too much defense. So Endless Night's not going to kill him. So he uses his Mephistopheles to kill one of my Adombralies, because he knows that he has Stony to Death in his hand. The problem is, again, he's just in too rough a shape here with 2 low life. Because I'm ramping into 8, I can tap into an 8th will, which is enough for me to play Maribel. So I attempt to swing for lethal with Adombrali. He Stony to Death it, and I just pull out Maribel and swing in for lethal. So again, in this position, there was just nothing really he could do. Valentina could have still been on the board, but even with Valentina being off the board, because I missed the Maribel stuff, he was still in too bad shape. So moving into game 2. Going to be going on the draw, hoping this time that he does not get as many Barrier of Shadows. See me mill 3 there. I decided to actually keep the Feasting and draw into a lot of ramp stuff early. Paul decides to filter before tapping for a stone, draws into a Barrier of Shadows, sends away that Alice's little scout, gets his first stone, which is blue back, and decides to scorn of Dark Alice. Sees that I have 2 Elvish Priests, 2 Gretels, and a Feasting. So out comes that first Elvish Priest. Sorry for the little transition there. We were dealing with some technical stuff, so I had to kind of cut the clip a little bit. Paul draws into his turn and filters with Reflect. Decides to get rid of the Hoster. Phase 1 puts out that Barrier, and 2 Rasputin. I don't really necessarily know if Barrier was the right play in this instance. He knows that I have a lot of ramp in my hand, so Barrier is not going to have a massive impact. And so I honestly kind of maybe would have saved the will to maybe do some destruction or something like that. I don't know what he has in his hand though. Barrier just felt like it kind of irrelevant with only just one. Like right now, I'm moving into my turn 3 and I have 6 will available if he doesn't kill anything. But I've got jump blockers to be able to, with the Grettles, to be able to protect my Elvish Priest if I need to. Yes, he's moving into 3 will, so he can Endless Knight, so technically he could eliminate my jump blockers, but if he did that, there's really no way that with a Rasputin that he would be able to kill one of my Elvish Priests. So, plays a Mozart, doesn't incarnate for Nyarlathotep. Again, I can just sacrifice a Gretel in this situation, and he makes me discard the Death Scythe. The reason why he gave me the Hera is because Hera is essentially dead in this matchup, and he recurs his Rasputin because of the fact that he has no Regalia, so he's just letting me keep a dead card in my hand in a sense. And he replays the Rasputin to provide himself with some cover. So the situation I'm in here right now this turn is that I could search for a Levitine and Judgment, but it would cost everything I have, and that's not necessarily the position I want to put myself in. I want to be a little bit more established before I make a move like that. So I'm actually going to pay 3, and I'm going to play that Queen Long that you see in my hand there, leaving up my blue will so I can get some searches out. See, Paul gets that meth. He also has an Adamberly there. He decides to pitch the Adamberly. With no blue resonators in his hand, really, that makes sense. Adamberly's kind of a dead card for him as well. You see, he does have that Hera in his own hand, so if I do play a Regalia, he'll be able to pop it, which is helpful for him. And out comes that Mephistopheles. So I know now that I have to make a move, essentially, at this point. Swings in with the Nyarlathotep, and I block with Gretel. Sacrifices and recurs the Rasputin. In response to that, I'm going to recur my Death Scythe from the grave and do a double search for a Maribel and a Death Scythe. So at this point, I have Maribel, Death Scythe, and Levity, the 3 Regalia that the deck runs, in my hand, ready to make my move next turn. Draw for turn. Maribel, Death Scythe, Levity, and I actually drew into a Maribel off the top, which was very, very helpful. I pay 4, and I have Valentina back out with all 7 kings. So I go ahead and swing at Paul for 1400 damage. The optimal play here would have actually been to kill the Nyarlathotep, I think. But at the same time, I also know that Jarl's not super important, and it's going to get killed to his own Mephistopheles. And here's the other part where I kind of mess up. I have really known there's really no point in me swinging in with the Queen Long. I'm just essentially just sacrificing a creature because I can't follow it up with any kind of attack or protection. And now my Priscia Godsart is just that much less effective. So I should have just let it sit. We actually catch for game 2 here. We actually remember that Maribel reduces damage, and so you're not going to see Mephistopheles killing Valentina because of the reduced damage from Maribel. So we catch it for game 2, but like I said, didn't really have much impact on game 1. So Paul's at a really interesting position here. He's staring down 2 Elvish, a large amount of will with only 1 barrier, which means that next turn I'm going to have access to a lot of stuff. He's going to have to kill one of his own creatures with Mephistopheles at the end of the turn, and he's much lower on life than I am. So he flips over. Here's Reflect Refrain. So this can help him with creatures and helping me bounce my stuff if he needs to. Plays a Hera to pop one of my Maribels and draw a card. I can't really do anything in response, so it's gonna happen. And then a Soul Hunt. So I'm gonna lose the Hera in my hand, and I am going to lose one of my Elvish Priests. I do float the will in response, so I at least have the floating will to if I need to. In comes that Rasputin. Yeah, see, this is where I tell him that Maribel actually reduces the damage, and so he can't kill me with Mephistopheles. The problem here is he's currently tapped out. He's moving into my turn. I have will to be able to play my Regalia during the upkeep, and he's already taken damage. So I'm going to be able to pump up Valentina a lot during my turn. And he actually recurs himself for Rasputin, so he needs to keep both of those blockers up. So I spend both my will to pump up Valentina with Death Scythe and Levitine before the upkeep. So now Valentina is a 16/16 who's doing 1800 damage, and all my God's Arts for the turn cost 3 less. So I'm going to pay 1 more will to use Levitine. Trying to figure out what God's Art I want to use here to finish the situation off. Find out that Paul has 3 cards in his hand. So I pay 1 will to use Levitine again. This reduces my God's Art by a total of 5, and which will include the Barrier of Shadows cost. And now Valentina is doing 2000 damage. So I attempt to swing in to finish the game for 2000 damage. Paul moves to block, and in response I use Rezard's God's Art. So Rezard's God's Art lets me remove from play any number of Resonators from my graveyard. For each one that I do, both players discard that many cards and destroy that many Resonators. So I essentially just clear his board and empty his field and get the 2000 damage to go through. So there you have it, guys. That is the green Valentina 2 list versus Paul's blue-black Reflect Refrain. If you want to check out the Valentina 2 list, go ahead and head on over to Force of Will US. We did this deck feature match as a collaboration, so the link's down in the description when that video goes live. And deck profile for Paul's list will be up this Saturday. So like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you thought of the matchup. And as always, this is DMO73 signing off.